Welcome to the next reel, everybody. I'm Pete Wright, and I'm sitting here with Steve Sarmento. Hello, Steve.
Hello, good evening.
And Tom Metz, right over there. Tommy.
Hello, gentlemen. Nice to be here.
And Andy Nelson is over there as well.
Hello.
This is a special edition of the next reel. It's the Film Board, monthly opportunity for us to catch up on a current movie.
And spoil the hell out of it.
And spoil the hell of it. So don't, you want to step back away from your computer or audio device. If you have not seen tonight's feature, you're next. And I'd like to open with an email because I'm very excited to hear an initial response. This email is from Tom Metz.
Oh,
and
what?
The subject line is, I feel better.
Right.
And here's the content. I feel better about pushing so hard for Your Next for the podcast, 76% on Metacritic, which, for a horror film, is through the roof. Looking forward to Saturday. T. Sent from my iHeart.
I can neither confirm nor deny that I may have typed that.
I'm trying to stay very subdued because, as you all may surmise, I am filled with some sort of cultural rage over this film. And so I would very much like to hear your thoughts. First, I hope somebody can talk me down. I hope somebody can talk me down about this film. And Tom, since you just saw it, I mean, we were holding the phone here.
Yes. Just came from the theater.
Back. I'm very interested in your most freshest insights.
Well, yeah, I guess I'll just get right to it. I was incredibly surprised and incredibly disappointed in the film. It's gotten so much good buzz. It destroyed at Sundance. The reviews, again, for a horror film have been exceedingly strong. And to be honest, I kept waiting for the film to show up. The film that all of these people seem to love and all these critics say is a fresh view and a new kind of way of doing horror filmmaking. I thought it had a couple interesting things, but pretty much it was a garbage movie. I'm sorry.
No, please, let's continue. You hold that. Let's continue.
Although, just to clarify, it was not Sundance, it was Toronto.
My bad. Okay. Oh, well, Canadians. There you go.
Now we have someone to blame it on.
Oh, thank God. A patsy.
Blame Canada.
Steve, you're the gentle moderate of the group. Please give us your initial thoughts.
Challenge accepted. This film was, at first, I thought, this is two separate films. And then I realized this really is perhaps the director and writer's showcase almost of a proof of concept reel that they can do a variety of things. Because this film had a lot of different things that it was shifting. It shifted gears in a couple different ways that were different types of films or different types of filmmaking that were sort of woven together in this film. And if you look at each of those segments and appreciate it for what that portion of the film was trying to do and evaluate it on its strengths and that type of filmmaking, I think it was successful and I enjoyed this film.
I love that everyone gets to have their own opinion. I totally respect that. But it is impossible for me to catalog the number of things that you're full of right now.
Shall I break it down for you?
Not yet. Andy?
Well, you know how I feel about horror films, Pete.
You're a sucker.
I enjoy
chump.
horror films.
I know.
I don't know if chump or sucker define it quite correctly, but I do tend to enjoy them. And this film fits into a lot of these stories that have been coming out recently and actually for quite a while, this kind of like stuck in an isolated house being attacked by strangers sort of story. And I think it fits fine in that field of films. Like Tom, I agree that I was kind of expecting these big, changes to the genre and all this sort of stuff to be happening. But I wasn't disappointed by it. I mean, I didn't walk out loving it. I wasn't surprised by it, but I didn't hate it. I would say I enjoyed it. I walked out enjoying it.
I am stunned. I'm stunned at those responses. I really am, and it's not even like I'm with Tom. Man, I was waiting so long for the movie to start. It was a parade of the sort of D-list high school actors wandering around and playing Murder in the Dark with ketchup. Like it was not scary at all. At any point, I don't like the good ones because they make me kind of sick and think, especially the house ones, where there's people kind of sneaking around your house, watching your house. That I don't jive with that because the good ones, they get me. And I think about this one. Even the big twist, the twist in which it was supposed to reveal this new and refreshing and fantastic, hearkening in the next generation of Hollywood horror. And, oh my God, it was better than the Blair Witch Project, which also sucked, by the way. That twist happened. I felt it when it happened, and that's when the movie absolutely deflates for me. I mean, it got worse from the bottom of the barrel. It raced to the bottom with a bullet, this film. I can't believe how garbage this was. I'm breaking out in a sweat. Like I've been holding it in.
Is it a stress sweat? Is that what it is? Stress sweat?
I was texting, which smells terrible, apparently. I was actively texting and Facebooking this movie, and some of my things like I'm preparing to swallow my own tongue to end it all, and I feel like, judging from my experience against the reviews, we are witnessing the fall of civilization.
Well, I have to be upfront again. I think I did start by saying it. I'm also an enormous fan of horror films, and I maybe didn't see it with fresh eyes in the way that I didn't read any reviews of it, but I just saw the, Metacritic scores and how people were talking about it. So I really went in with a high, expectations. And I usually don't do that for horror. I do the opposite. So it's maybe a little bit unfair how harsh I feel about it, but I was just so let down that that's why I'm more in Pete's side, definitely, with this. I'm very forgiving with horror films, and this one I was exactly the opposite.
I feel like I'm gonna be less constructive.
Okay.
So
Pete,
I really need to hear somebody to defend it.
There's nothing coming out of your mouth, Pete, that's gonna save this film. So, Tom, I have some questions for you since you are a horror lover.
Please.
So, explain to me the disappointments that you have in a film like this versus, say, something like The Collector or The Strangers, which are two comparable films about people stuck in a house dealing with people trying to kill them.
Well, The Collector, I didn't think had much to say. It was more a little bit closer to like the final destination of just what is the biggest kind of Rube Goldberg, grossest way and surprising way we can torture or kill people. There can be something slightly interesting about that, which I know makes me sound like a creep, but I thought The Strangers actually did have things to say. I thought that both that and Vacancy, if you remember that, the hotel movie,
right,
for being in such a contained space, it actually pulled some tricks that I hadn't seen in a while. And it was also very happy to sit in silence, to not have, when you see the character show up behind the person who's unaware that they're there, to be in the house, to show up in the reflection of the window. It doesn't need to hit you in the throat with the music. It just sort of lets it sit. It was The Strangers, I thought, was really comfortable with silence for a lot of it. And I loved that. I thought it was actually really strong. So this movie, it was doing all the same tricks that the other ones did, except it was only jump scares. There was very little eeriness to it, which I usually appreciate, that kind of rising feeling of suspense. It was mainly just sort of waiting around for someone to turn around too quickly and to get a crossbow in the throat. So I just didn't think it had much to say. And I thought that there were a lot of chances for it to. The bickering family I thought was really interesting. One of the parts that I got really interested in was after the first crossbow attack and things are coming down, two things, and let me know if I'm talking too much. Two things. One thing that's really overlooked in horror movies, and I love it when it happens, is scenes of group panic. That usually the first thing that horror movies want to do is separate everybody out. And there are certain horror movies that do it really well, of having 5 to 6 to 7 people in a room all dealing with this kind of terror and then evolving into horror at their situation. That can be really, really powerful and much more scary than just someone going down into a basement. So I was excited about that. It did not last very long in this movie. Number two, I liked that the bickering kind of raised up and continued as what's-his-name had the arrow in his back. Some interesting things to sort of do with that, like how this family dynamics, this dysfunctional family would continue to devolve and get more and more crazy and sort of add some comedy to the terror. And then they immediately lost that too.
Okay. So now give me a response here. Steve, you had some points to. You had a point on this.
Oh yeah, and I think, if we're going to stick in the beginning part here.
Yeah, before the twist.
Right, before the twist. So I call it sort of part one. And Tom, I agree with you. The family dynamic was really interesting. And even the before that first crossbow bolt comes through, the discussion at the dinner table, setting up this dynamic between these characters, and you realize, it's these really wealthy, bratty kids.
Right, it's
and
fun.
It's like, Drake, I turned to the guy I was seeing it with, I said, oh my gosh, this guy is such an ass. His comments about, underground film festivals, are those underground? And, right. I think I've seen a documentary commercial before. I was like, this is hilarious. This guy is he's either completely disconnected from society, or he's just playing this game for his to his sister's friend that she brought, this filmmaker, and he's just messing with this guy. And I'm like, either way, it's an interesting dynamic for that character, which then set up for the point when you have that the group sort of responding to the chaos, and they're like, okay, we're gonna run for the car, and then there's that bickering about who's the fastest runner. It's like, no, Crispin's like, no, I can run. They're like, no, you used to be fat. You can't run. I'm going to run. And then, Amy, the, daddy's little princess is like, how come nobody believes me? I can run fast. And she like throws off like, I ran a mile in this fast, and they're like, okay, go for it. And I thought, this is a really hilarious dynamic, because these are people that just are so out of touch. And there's always this like gamesmanship between like, competing for like their parents' attention, or there's a really interesting dynamic that was fun to see, that added, I think, that sense of this movie is taking itself seriously in a different way, I guess. So I thought, okay, to me, I was expecting something like The Strangers, which is a movie that I love. And the way this film was promoted, that's what I was expecting. It's like, oh, the animals are hunting us and all of that. And it shifts away from that and becomes something else. But I thought in this beginning part, it seemed to set that up enough. And contributing to that chaotic family moment, there was the jiggly monkey camera that was just in that moment. That sort of gets back to where I feel like the filmmakers are showcasing, hey, we can do a silent, this first part of the film, we can do a silent, suspenseful, tension-building horror film. Oh, we can do an action sequence, so we've got chaotic filmmaking going on. Jiggly cam as the family is like scrambling under the table and running with chairs past the window. That okay, that
was so, I'm sorry, but so ridiculous.
Why was that ridiculous?
Oh my goodness.
That's the most real thing. That's where I thought, wow, these are actually smart people. You've got the one guest, you've got Crispin's girlfriend, Erin, saying, okay, take this chair and you're going to run past the window. We can't be in front of the windows because, there's somebody out there with a crossbow.
There was nothing intelligent about that. You pick up a chair that has no wood backing to it. These arrows are like they're going through things, right? They're going through things. And yet there is like a 3-foot a 3-foot half wall that they could crawl under and stay out of view of the window. It was nothing that was smart about picking up those chairs. You get on the ground and you scoot.
But if the guy's right there at the window, he can shoot through the window right down at you. So you run quickly, and again, it's accepting the reality that you're presented in the movie. Okay.
Which was
which was,
Uh,
As I said, insipid. Andy,
No,
please,
and-
please
well,
wait, but
tell me
real-
how much I'm wrong.
To
And
back
well-
up, can I back up on what Steve said really quick? I'm sorry to interrupt, Andy. Is I liked the chairs part because it was something. Usually they just stand up in front of the windows and run. Pete, I know that it can seem insipid and stuff, but there is a certain amount, of course, and you know this, a certain amount of suspension of disbelief that you have to go into with a horror movie because you're safe in a theater.
Of course.
So you know what you would do. You would
Of
just crawl under
course.
that table where no one can see you. But the fact
Not-
that... But
Not
the fact
only that, but they prove the fact that it's not just some silly tactic that they're using, but they actually have one of the crossbow bolts hit the chair and it doesn't go through. So
Right.
they actually demonstrate to us that in this movie,
I didn't see that.
though,
I didn't catch
you
that.
were, that's when you were texting. They actually
a
show
bolt goes
that it
through,
does
yeah.
stop the crossbow bolt.
Yeah.
Well, when we saw the bolt go through, it stops, but it goes through enough that she was almost hit and killed.
Well, but it still slowed it down enough that it reduced the. It wasn't
Yeah,
a
she didn't
lethal
die.
shot.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
So it worked.
Well, okay.
I guess what I was saying is I appreciate the time to think of someone being like, let's use chairs and do this versus just
Right.
kind of run.
Well, yeah,
Exactly.
and there is a functional utility to that for the character, which we need to establish Sharni Vincent as somebody with smarts and power, and I get that. Like, I recognize that there is a functional role to having the chair there, or the chair gimmick. So I'll let that go. That's fine. Move along. Hey, Andy, you were about to I had tossed to you to tell me how
well,
wrong I am.
No, I was just going back to the chair. I mean, we already dealt with that. But there are elements of this that I do have problems with. And like I said, I enjoyed this film. I acknowledge that it has problems, but it's, I've seen plenty of worse horror films, and I probably enjoy them all just as much, which is probably a sad thing to say. And it's not going to help any case that I try to make with this film. But there are problems in this film, and I do think that one of them is when the group does break up, and going upstairs and mom laying down and all that sort of stuff was just silly. And I do find one of the ideas that this film presents at the beginning is that, one of these people, or perhaps all of them, have been basically living in this house waiting for these people to arrive. And the fact that this one guy is basically living in the closet in mom and dad's bedroom for an entire day, for like a full, at least, 50 hours, maybe not that much, but they get there in the middle of the day, they spend one night, they have the whole next day, and these guys don't attack until dinner the next night. This guy is sitting in their closet, peeing in a bottle, and just all this stuff for that length of time. I did find that a little silly. It's just one of those things. I'm like, come on, he's not going to be able to be quiet for that long, and God forbid they open the closet to put something in it. So that was a problem I had with the film. But I did like that. I at least liked the idea that these guys were already inside. I liked that conceit that you don't often see. They're not just coming from the outside and attacking, trying to get in. They actually already have people inside. So
Yep.
Okay.
I like that
Okay.
too. It was undercut a little bit for me in the fact that they seemed to make so much noise, and then no one was able to fully
Find
search
them.
the one room that was. I mean, I could have used a little bit less of just not actually opening that one door where all the noise is coming from. But
yeah,
Okay,
right. It's
but
the
not-
noisiest closet ever.
Not to give away, twist things, but
Well, let's
there's
just say it from this point forward, we're spoiling it all.
well, no,
'Cause
I was
I
just
know
gonna,
exactly what you're gonna say.
because why he doesn't end up, why the father
Right.
doesn't end up. I take your point. I get it. Can we start spoiling yet?
Yes.
Well, I was just gonna say there's you say they're all in the house together, but we could say there's somebody on the inside that again go yeah, exactly, go to the point when the father's going to check out the sound the first time, and he doesn't open that door. Why? Because someone distracts him from that, and there could have been multiple opportunities. Again, you can tell any story you want of like, well, this character could have done that, we didn't see that, we don't know. But to me, it was all plausible that it's a huge house, There's enough space moving around. It didn't bother me because I'm going to accept the fact that, given the what we learned about these these hunters or the animals, that's to me within the realm of possibly based on what we learn about them and what their life experience is. That seemed plausible to me, that somebody would be camped out in that small space, confined, because it's something these guys would do.
Agreed.
And at least the dad finds it later and decides to cherish and take and cherish the urine.
Until the lights go out. Oh boy.
Oh boy.
I was really just getting into this urine.
I think I'm going to take this urine, and I don't know, maybe I have what? I do a pee test that I can run on it? DNA? What am we? Why am I taking this bottle of urine? Please. Okay, so
you just don't know how to lose yourself in a film, do
No.
you can't just sit back and say, present me with a story, let me take it for what it is. You just analyze everything and second guess everything. Are you a guy that doesn't enjoy Jurassic Park because the goat's there and then the goat's not there? It's now a 30-foot drop. Do you get all critical and say, I can't enjoy
Steve.
Jurassic Park because of that?
Trump, Steve. I like Jurassic Park 3. You can't get me on that. I will lose myself in movies left and right. You accuse me of being the popcorn guy. I love these kinds of movies. That's
Except for these kinds of movies.
no.
Except
this
for
was
cheese,
this was so radically unbelievable. The performances were so bad in this film. It wasn't. It was like such a horrible lampooning of themselves that I couldn't get the joke. That's the problem. I never got the joke. But the biggest problem with the film, for me, let's put it aside that it feels like like I was seeing an 8th grade play. I was not scared, and I am an easy mark to be scared. I am an easy mark, and I was never once scared. The suspense in this film was not palpable. I didn't even the beginning, sort of the Scream style kind of initial murder was not. I didn't find that particularly compelling. I was looking forward to a little bit more suspense. I was muddling through the horrific performances of the family, the mother's completely unrestricted warbling and crying. God, I could not wait for her to lose, parts of her. But the real trick was for me at the twist. So I'm going to make the transition to the twist, right?
Okay, but before you do, so you're telling me none of those, you didn't have any of those jumps. So when Dad's checking out the closet and Crispin sort of appears, there's a jump there. There's the point when Aaron, is in the kitchen and the arm comes through the window to grab her and she takes the knife and pins his arm to the wall. You didn't jump. There wasn't enough tension or suspense that you didn't sort of spill your popcorn or jump.
I didn't spill.
I won't say scared. I agree. It wasn't a scary film, but
there's surprises. Okay, but
Okay.
I'm telling you, the problem with it is I wasn't surprised. They were all so horrifically predictable. Like I knew I was about to jump when the arm came through.
Yeah.
I knew that he was gonna something was gonna happen with the door. I knew it was gonna happen. There was nothing that really set me up for a surprise, and that is a major failing in a movie like this. Even you guys who like movies like this, you have to agree that's a failing of this film, and that is a core component of the film.
I don't know if I can't agree with that. I mean, I think I don't think it's as
A
scary as
horror movie that doesn't scare you is a win.
I'm not saying that. That's not what I'm saying. That's what you're saying. I'm saying I think that it worked. I think that it was effective. It wasn't the scariest movie that I've ever seen, but it still made the audience jump. I mean, like I said, I had a great audience to watch this with. Everybody was very into it. Lots of jumps, lots of talking back at the screen. It was a very exciting audience to watch it with. Now, audience reaction does often play a part in watching horror movies because it can amp up kind of that excitement and everything. So maybe that's why I enjoyed it more. It was just a very excited audience, and they were getting into every little moment that was happening. It made it a very fun ride for me. And it wasn't even as scary as the Conjuring, which I don't think was as scary as it was made out to be, but it still was a nice little horror film.
Agreed.
But it still, I think it still was effective for me.
So you're saying this was better than The Conjuring?
No, that's not what I said.
I didn't miss
said,
the point. I mean, I
The
just missed
Conjuring, I said
comparison.
it wasn't as scary as The Conjuring, which then I said was not the scariest film that I've seen, not as scary as they
Okay.
made that one out to
Okay,
be.
right.
But I still found that more scary than this. But I still think this had some nice jump moments, and I enjoyed the tension and the horror in this film.
Okay.
Now we can spoil it. We can say spoiler, and at the spoiler, I will admit this turns into a different movie.
Steve, would you like to share what
Sure,
what happens?
Well, because part one is, to me, I was expecting that like strangers, home invasion, suspenseful thing, and the music, everything was built was surrounded, around that. It was key to that, and then we get the point. And where there's a big twist, and the character, I think his name is Felix, basically says something along the lines of, "Did you have to do that right in front of me?" And then it turns into something else. And again, now I know at this point, this film can no longer be scary because it's stopped being like a who are these guys to
them
why.
against us.
It's like a why. It's like a why are they doing this?
Which I didn't. Yeah, which was a pretty obvious why, I thought.
Well, yeah, it did, but so I'm like, okay, we're gonna start to get a little bit more this, and I don't know if any of you caught this. To me, it seemed really obvious. All of a sudden, the score changed, and we were getting like John Carpenter synth 80s, and I thought, oh, I don't remember that music before. It was like, I'm like, that's cueing me into they are going in a completely different direction with this movie. We're going into like 80s horror, cheesy, fun slasher gore, and that's what this movie then became. And so I said, okay, now I'm going to shift my expectations, and now it's just going to become, how's everybody getting killed? How are they going to do some unique twists on this? To have the lone survivor at the end, because I know where we're going, because we're in 80s horror realm. The young girl that's out against everybody, and it became silly and ridiculous and fun, and I think they mission accomplished on that because it had one of the most creative and laughable kills. And people were, and the audience were like, no, oh no, she didn't. Oh yes, she did. She plugged in the blender. It was hilarious.
On that point, I think her confession of that, her delivery of her confession of that to Crispin was even better. Where's Felix? I put a blender on his head. That was great. That was probably the highlight of the film for me.
It's a different film. It's to me, I always go back to something I recall from Roger Ebert when people were critical of him, like, how can you give this film 4 stars? If you give The Godfather 4 stars, how can you give this other film 4 stars? Are you saying it's as good as The Godfather? And his response was, I judge a film on the merits of what it's trying to accomplish, and if it's a comedy and it does it really well, it's a 4-star comedy. You don't say, oh, well, a 4-star film is as good as another 4-star film. It's based on the merits of what it's trying to accomplish. And for me, they shifted gears and had a different goal now of we're going to do a different type of movie now within this same story. And I think they did it very well.
Well, and they effectively put us in the know. Like we knew everything that was going on at that point, and now the real game was, when will she find out? How long is it going to take for her to get clued in to really what's going on with all this stuff?
And if you look back at the beginning of the film, there's enough clues, I think, to see that it's not like this sudden shift. I mean, there's things about, oh, well, Dad's retired. He's, he worked for this defense contracting company. I thought, oh, okay, so now I see a connection to where Felix would have met these guys, possibly. There's the money in there, because when I think her name's Kelly goes next door to try to talk to the neighbor, and when I forget which face it is, if it's a lamb face or rabbit face. The lamb comes through. I'm looking at what he's wearing. I'm like, this looks like military gear that he's got on. Oh my gosh. Right. Okay. So at that point, I don't know everything yet, but I was thinking, okay, so this ties back to Dad's employment or retirement. Maybe he's got some information that somebody wants, but there's clearly some connection to his former employer somehow. So I thought, okay, now as we learned about Felix, I thought, okay, this makes sense. So it's not just, oh, he's got a lot of money, he hired some guys, but there was within their, the world of this film and what these characters would know and have access to, it made sense to me. So I was like, okay, even though it's in a different direction, it's logical. There's things in it, with Crispin, it's discussions of, he didn't get the fellowship. It's setting up these things. So I see his role in that. And even if you think about it, when Crispin and Aaron, their first night there, and he's talking about, his family and that, things might be kind of weird. And she says something like, there's people that would kill to have a family like yours. You get the sense of she's come from a pretty rough life. And, she's with this guy who's got it. You should have it easy, all this money and everything. And there's a few things she said that just sort of, I thought, okay, she's coming from, a place where maybe she had to work really hard for things. And we learn, a little bit more about her survivalist background. I thought, okay, so again, they connected the dots through, and it wasn't like things came out of nowhere. I could see that they had laid minimal, foundational pieces in the first part of the film, so that when it shifted gears, these characters still were acting in a way that would be logical within the world that they're setting up. It wasn't like, let's forget everything from the first half. We're going to do something different. It's still connected through for me.
I got to be completely honest. I didn't make a lot of those connections. I knew that the family had money, so I was thinking that maybe something was going to be an inside job. But you just sort of you and Andy both just laid out a lot of train tracks that I didn't connect until just now. So I appreciate that. That's interesting.
Traitor.
Thank you. But
No.
but I do want to say,
No, go ahead, Tom. Go ahead.
one thing that the double twist, I guess it is, did set up was disappointing, because going back, so now you know the twist, so you can go back to the beginning. So I'm going to lay my own train tracks. What? Anyways, is that the movie had character motivation is always one of the big, no pun intended, killers in horror movies, of people doing stupid things for stupid reasons just because we need them to die. So that's why they split up. That's why they go into basements, all that kind of stuff. One of the things with the twists in mind that this movie kind of really interestingly had in its back pocket was there were a number of people on the inside that could help orchestrate that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
While we talked about let's distract Dad from going in the closet, that's a thing. But there was too much other things that people could have been doing dumb things, but then it turns out, they did it because they had an agenda. And that would have been really smart. Like, for instance, the scene, while I liked the emotion of it in the beginning when they're deciding who should run outside, yes, Beardy, Crispin does take his girlfriend, the one competent person there, and is like, kind of stay out of this. But then the father is also agreeing, yes, I should send out my young daughter on a sprint to go outside, granted into something horrible. But they didn't need to do that. The father could have been saying no, but then the number of people that were in on it could have been saying, it's got to happen this way. It's got to happen this way.
Yeah.
And the fact that they didn't use that, because with that happening during the movie, you would have been like, dumb horror characters. And then later, what a payoff that would be.
Yeah.
And I
true.
feel
Totally
I'm
agree.
disappointed of why wouldn't they use that shit that they had? Because no horror movies have that usually. That could have been so cool, so interesting.
Yeah, in the context of kind of wasted opportunity.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, there were a couple of things as I reflected on it, looking back in the first part, looking at how it's Felix and Z sort of behave, because there was when the arrows are coming through, you see that they're in a different part of the room. They're like distance themselves off, or when Aaron just takes that meat tenderizer and just beats the crap out of that guy. She's like, oh, thanks for the help. He's like, well, I could see you sort of had it handled. And then, as you realize they're in on it, it's like, oh, that's okay. Again, consistent behavior.
But what? Please, this may even be a question of casting. Casting the brooding and dark Nicholas Tucci as the guy who was in on the brooding and dark, horrifying thing is yet another example of incredible predictability in this film. The moment those two walked in and started kind of waltzing through the script, you know that they're the ones who are going to be behind this thing.
It's like casting Frank Langella as the family friend.
Right. Right.
You're just waiting for that to turn.
Oh my goodness. So I mean that's Joe Swanberg, Drake's character, is going to be the first to go, mostly because Apparently, they've seen his movies, and so there are. I mean, there's just a series of interesting, sort of predictable things. Now, had you put all the characters in a dice cup and shake them all out again, and suddenly Sharni Vinson is the one on the inside track. Now we have a movie.
Who is Sharni Vinson?
She was
Sharni
Aaron.
Vinson was
Sharni
Aaron.
Vinson was Aaron. She was
the
the main character, the
survivalist.
survivalist.
Yeah.
Oh, that's it, because that would have been a serious twist. Sure.
That would have been
Yeah.
a twist that would have been interesting. Otherwise, everything else was just absolutely cast to character. I mean, it's just.
To be honest, though, I didn't see Crispin being in on it. I saw
Yeah, I
Crispin
didn't
coming
either.
in at the end of the movie and getting just when Shawnee wins the entire thing.
Oh,
Crispin
yeah.
comes in, ding
Through
dong.
Through
and
the
gets-
front door
yeah.
and gets
That's
the
what
axe in the head.
That's.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be a real nihilistic ending like that.
Oh, I could have used
but
that.
what about the ending
I
they
thought
did
it would
have?
been a nihilistic ending.
Oh, but what about the ending they did have, though? I
Pretty
mean,
nihilistic.
yeah, it was still pretty nihilistic.
It
you
wasn't
think.
nihilistic enough.
Oh, jeez.
It was exactly what you needed to end for a film like this.
No,
I thought it worked
exactly.
fine. It worked fine for me.
Sky would have preferred, and I know that this is creeps, but I would have preferred that she didn't get shot in the shoulder and ended up as a suspect. I
Yeah.
wanted it more like the original Night of the Living Dead.
Oh, well,
One
yeah.
person that knows the truth
Yeah.
and that fought her ever-living heart out and got this stuff is destroyed by ignorance at the very end.
Yeah.
Just because I like unhappy endings sometimes, just because they're so rare.
Yeah.
That would have been a nice bit to end it that way. I agree. But as it ended, I still enjoyed it. I mean, she's got a cop's slug in her shoulder, and I don't know. I still enjoyed the way it ended, and I have to say I really enjoyed the fact that she had this booby-trapped door, and as soon as she did it, not a single person came through that door.
I know.
Everybody used the window.
The window,
Big broken
yes.
window.
They
I
did,
thought
and
that
they
was-
made such a point of. I mean, just the number of close-ups of tying the knots and wrapping
Yeah.
around the
Yeah.
things. That was.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It was like the coolest version of Home Alone ever.
That actually, it was a point that I made to myself. Like, wouldn't this movie have been better with Macaulay Culkin in it? The problem with the twist for me was, and I'm interested in. I'm genuinely interested in your takes on this.
Wait, Pete, though, you're saying that you saw Crispin being in on it?
Yeah, totally. He
Fair
was
enough.
gone. He was gone too long.
He was gone too long, yeah.
He was
Fair
gone
enough. Fair enough. Okay.
So I am the seer of all plots, Tom.
I understand. Thank you so much, Oracle.
I feel like sometimes I like the twists, right? I like the twists, but in this case I get the twist, and what they end up doing with this, as I'm already trying so hard to be scared, is they deflate the horror aspect. And as you guys have said, they change the tone of the movie. It's now a different movie, and you have to change your perspective, and I get that. I get what they're kind of asking of me, but isn't that on some level a betrayal to the intent of the film that they set up? In this case, they built in a horror movie, and they created these characters that could be genuinely scary. I mean, ultimately, I think the promotional art was scarier than the actual implementation of the guys in the masks. But by the time the twist comes, they now have made them even less palpable, right, in terms of a terror to the family. And from that point on, it's sort of clumsy to me. It's just another sort of clumsy plod through the second half of the movie, which now has very little relationship to the first, both in tone and tenor, and in ultimately loosely in plot.
Well, here's the thing: is the twist sort of the pivot turns from which is what I appreciated about this was it turned from them being hunted to she's turning the tables on them, where now it's like what traps can she set for these guys, because now you start to feel like, okay, how long do these guys have left? It's not how long will this family survive. It's like how long before she takes out all these invaders. The three guys. The tables have now turned, and it's now how long is it going to take her to get rid of all these guys, and what creative ways is she going to lure them into her traps and basically be able to survive the night?
It's no different than the change that whenever the protagonist of your story finally takes the helm to take charge and survive in a situation in a film like this. It's just like, Last House on the Left, or like I brought up earlier, The Collector. I mean, these are people who now have to basically change their tactics. They all of a sudden have kind of a leg up on the attacker, and they're able to turn the tables. And in that sense, I mean, it fits right in. And so I didn't think that change in tone when we all of a sudden learn that Felix and Z are in on it, and we kind of meet the lamb, tiger, and fox. We kind of get to know who they are a little more. I didn't find that was enough of a tonal shift for me that all of a sudden I was taken out of the movie, and I'm like, whoa, this is all out of left field. What kind of movie am I watching here? For me, it still fit in with the genre. I didn't have any problem with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right,
I liked that part a bit because the movie woke up again for me. And I like the nod to Straw Dogs with her trying to warm up, or maybe it was Last House on the Left. I think it was Straw Dogs.
Oh, where she boils the water.
We're boiling the water, and then it's
And
way
then it was
too late.
yeah.
But then he slips on. But then he slips on it. And I was like,
slip on it, yeah.
But which again, there's the comic elements, and I think, I'm kind of interested in a second viewing to see how, looking at Aaron and like this family and just how so, comical they are, because like I said, Drake's got his moments, but then you think about, you think about Felix and this girlfriend who, while they're sitting on the bed with his mom's corpse,
That was a highlight.
and I was like, dude, what kind of people are you involved with? This is just like, what kind of weirdo are you, really? I was like, this. I mean, it's
grim.
sick and funny and grim, but it's like, okay, so you get it. It's just like, wow, the dynamics of this family are just really messed up. Apparently, even early on, mom's on some type of medication, can't have alcohol, so she's dealing with her stuff. But to me, it's like they're just setting up this wealthy family that just has all these huge issues. And it's almost played for a comic, theme through the film that's, got these horror elements sort of, woven in with it. It's a really different type of, approach to these characters, and Erin is your typical, lone survivor of the horror film, but the people she's in with are just a really unique cast of characters that kept it fresh for me. Anyway, I mean, when Felix is in the basement with Drake, I mean, it's just, it's stab. And he's like, why won't you die? You're making this so hard for me. And he's got like 6 or 7 screwdrivers in his chest at the end. It's like, here's somebody who's just, Felix, he's got to pay guys to do something because he's really incompetent. He doesn't know, he can't kill anybody if he tries, really, really hard.
They all are. Crispin is a pacifist.
Crispin's a pacifist. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I can't do this. I'm a pacifist.
I really
kids. Yeah.
Where the movie would have been that kind of fresh, kind of interesting take is just I needed all of that I'm sorry, not all of it, but so much of it stopped after the daughter ran out the door.
After the
I
garrote hit the wire.
wanted so much more time with all the family together, having all of their horrible dysfunction. And I mean, that scene, I know it was already brought up, but her saying, how come nobody ever thinks about me? I'm a fast runner. I could have used, that should have been another 45 minutes of slowly picking people off versus just taking, because then otherwise it just became for me, again, a low rent version of The Strangers. And Tom, I think part of it had, like I said, I was looking forward to this because I really enjoyed The Strangers, and I don't know how much I can fault the filmmakers versus how marketing chose to promote this film. And as Pete said, the posters are scarier, and it's setting up expectations. And as I said, it's one of these cases of the image of the film that's sold versus what the filmmakers really crafted, and it's something very, very different and unique. And I think that may be, it's not going to have as strong a box office because people want those scares and they're going to get something really different. But I hope it does find its audience, because this horror comedy type thing is a really unique creature. And if you approach it that way, I think, if it was something in the 80s, it's going to find that. I go back to I don't know if any of you guys remember the film April Fool's Day. Yeah, I own it.
Yeah,
Nice.
it's that type of it has that type of tone to it where it's like it's scary, but then it's got these, and I would say in the 80s, this is a movie that would have found its audience on home video. So maybe, it'll find its video in, on streaming and DVD and all that later.
I think you may have just put your finger on my resentment of this film, Steve. And it's not because it's not because I didn't like horror movies in the 80s, right? It's because I feel like the sort of gestalt of horror movies, of horror comedy movies, has changed, and my expectation has sort of changed with it. When you say horror comedy movie, I think something like Zombieland, and that is a different vibe for me. It is it's
that's a comedy horror film. It's more comedy than horror. Where this is horror.
But the problem is this was neither horrific nor funny.
Come on, how can you not laugh at those moments when that John Carpenter synth score and Erin's standing framed in the doorway, she's all grubby and stuff, and I'm like, oh my gosh, and that synth is going. I was like, that's like this, it's just that stereotypical shot and the music. I'm like, wow, they really captured homage to those types of films, and they did it. That's what they did.
And wasn't
a film that didn't need homaging?
And wasn't it right around there too, also, where the killer is the tiger or one of them, just kind of silently steps in the background, across the background in the frame, and it fit nicely with that whole Halloween vibe, and with the John Carpenter music, it had that tone going through that, and
there's a big reference to Halloween, just because you were saying that when it happens in the neighbor's house when he kills Screaming Magoo, not in the cold open, but later when he kills her and then sits down and then does that tilt of the head.
Right, just to watch
that
her,
sociopathic tilt of the head of, like death means nothing to me.
Now that's a
huge iconic moment for Michael Myers.
Right.
That scene there was it was one of the few things that really bothered me, because she comes up to the house and the doors have been the glass doors have been cleaned off. Right. So I'm like, okay. So in the cold open we get the blood, you're next written on there, and I thought, okay, so they did that for what reason? Just to spook that guy? Because if really the plot is to like set up this whole thing of like these strange people came in and killed not only our family but the neighbors, then you would leave that there. But the only reason, because that builds the case of, there were these lunatics coming through the countryside that killed the neighbors and our parents, and we're the lone survivors. But by cleaning that off, as Kelly comes to the house and knocks on the door and everything, I'm like, well, you clean that off, so
all right, I'm going to prove that I actually am involved in the universe of this silly film, and I'm going to tell you why. Because they needed them dead, so that because there were neighbors to this house, they needed the neighbors to not be there. And so they killed.
I know that.
Well, no, hang on. They killed the neighbors, right? They kill the neighbors. They do the "you're next" to spook that guy, and then they have to clean everything up. And they put him in the chair and left the music on, so that it would seem like somebody was home, right? I mean, they had to set up a stage, but if they set up a stage and left the window there, then the people would have called the police.
Okay.
Right? I mean,
well, but
I feel like I've just tell me I've redeemed some of my antagonism for this.
No, you're right. It wasn't. I don't think it was as much of like setting up a lone like crazy serial killer going down the thing. The whole movie starts. I think the very first thing they say is that it's nice to have neighbors. We're so isolated, and that's the one place they'll go.
That was set up. That's the one thing in this film that I liked.
But that being said, I think the one thing that has no reason to exist is the "you're next."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's a great point.
I kept waiting for that to become a thing, but they're not a thing. They're terrorizing these people. They have crossbows and dead people. Like that's just not.
Yeah, why bother?
And it looks like ketchup. It's a completely why bother thing. Yeah.
Why that should have been the message. Why bother in blood?
The first house. More of a.
That was the original.
That was the original title. Yeah.
Needn't have bothered.
I feel like it would be inappropriate for us to move on to any other discussion without doing a brief roundtable on favorite kills. And I think because we've already mentioned it, you can't say the blender.
Yes.
Favorite kill for
yeah.
me was when, because the movie came alive again, was when Shawnee. I'm sorry, you know me in names.
Sharni.
What?
Sharni.
Sharni. Oh, see, I just don't care for that name. Sharni, when she had the meat tenderizer and just went insane on the killer. Because that's something that you don't see a lot is just well, I guess that's not true. A lot of time you never saw pain from killers. Killers just being completely dominated. Scream changed that a bit. What they did is they had the females really kind of kick the S out of people before they got killed. But I just thought that was kind of such an heroic change in the film that I kind of got excited by it. It said something.
Yeah. It was nice. Just because you said that one, because that one was so great, I'm gonna go with actually Crispin's at the end, because it was just at that point in the film it was just it wasn't called for at all, but it just felt good.
And I like that she didn't say anything.
But she did.
She said, "Why not?"
Not before, right?
But she did after. I guess I like that she didn't say "you're stuck" and then she. You know what I mean? Like it seemed like she was sort of answering a question versus just being like "stick around."
That's right. Or she could have said, "You're next."
Oh yeah. She could have said "you're last."
You're last.
I love these armchair rewrites. These are great. You made it a better movie.
All right, Steve.
Oh, the other one that just really got me was Amy running out through the door, because it just was really unexpected, because it was like writing, like, they think they've come up with this brilliant plan. They won't expect her coming out of the door full speed. And it's like, oh, yes, they will. And it was really just, I don't know. It just got me in the gut, just really unexpected. And I thought, okay, there's really nothing they can do. It really seemed to take the control away from them. So I enjoyed that in front of the, for the first half. I agree with Andy and Tom. Those are also quality moments. But I want to make sure we mention that, Amy's neck.
Well, I'm glad
what
you
I
did.
would have loved so much is if, when like the second time you watch it, if it was Crispin and Felix being like, "No, you're right. She's the fastest runner."
Oh yeah.
As if they know that it's out there.
Yeah.
The thing I liked the most about it was that really sensitive kind of cross-cutting between her and Dad, giving her that confidence. The gentle nod, "You can do it, honey." I thought that added a real element of believability.
Yeah, well,
wait, that's not the word I've looked for. But it was still funny. I thought that bit was amusing. So I'll give you that.
And I want to say, what sort of keyed me into the comic moment, speaking of the character of Amy, is that actress was also in Upstream Color, and as one of the two leads that carries that film, can see her abilities as an actress, and then to see the way the role of Amy was played, I thought, okay, just this really shrill and obnoxious and just needy character. I thought, okay, here's an actress that it could come across as bad acting, but since I've seen what this actress can do in another film, I thought, okay, that's a type that this character is playing. And maybe that was something just because I'd seen Upstream Color earlier in the week and just seen just some really dynamic acting, and saw this. I thought, wow, this is a choice that they've made for this role. It's not just poor acting. We're going to make this character this way. And I think that was another thing that keyed me into the tone of the film and where they were going by having such I don't want to say obnoxious, but yeah, character, And so it was sort of, I don't want to say I was happy to see her die, but she was one of those ones where when they're introducing everybody, her and her boyfriend, Tariq or whatever, it's like, okay, these are useless characters. They're going to be some of the first to go.
But it was fun also seeing Ty West in there, just knowing his kind of the horror films that he's made. And so it was just funny to see him as this little kind of meek documentary filmmaker, which I thought was pretty funny.
Have you guys seen The House of the Devil and The Innkeepers?
I've seen The Innkeepers. I've seen parts of House of the Devil, but I haven't finished that one.
Okay.
What he's done like all of the 2000s horror films, right? VHS and
VHS,
Cabin Fever 2, Spring Fever, and
ABCs of Death.
ABCs of Death.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about that one too.
Yeah.
My favorite.
I think these filmmakers did too. Actually, I think,
I think they were
Adam
part of it.
Adam Wingard and Simon Barrett.
Simon Barrett, who was also the tiger. We
Yes.
should make note of that. My favorite kill, because it was going to be Amy Seamett's the garroting, but Steve already took that one. I'm gonna say the screwing in the basement. The death of Drake. I think that's probably another element that I found passable in the film, was this idea that Drake, who was the most annoying and took one of the first arrows in the crossbow sequence, they made the choice to let him live a little bit longer, and I think that was a bold choice to. Now, not only is he incredibly annoying, but he's annoying and in pain. And that sort of amps up the performance a little bit. When
he ran outside and hit his arrow shoulder on the razor wire,
yes.
was the biggest laugh in the film for me.
That was great.
Yeah. That's
unfortunately for me, I think that kill belonged to Crispin.
The kill belonged to. What do you mean? The kill belonged to Crispin?
Yeah, I mean, I know that he sort of was gone for a long time and turned out to be a pacifist, but the fact that we've already spoiled and he was in. Yeah. I think there were interesting through lines that you guys brought up and other through lines that didn't pay off. If anyone had reason to really want to put a bunch of knives and screws into Drake, it was Crispin.
Yeah, you're right.
Set up from the very beginning. Yeah. I don't know. I know that's huge rewriting, but I'm just sort of thinking.
Yeah,
it would have made more sense. I guess I also had trouble with the fact that out of the entire family, Felix was the biggest cipher for me.
Yeah.
And so the least rewarding as a twist.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think we knew so much more about everybody else. Yep. And so when Felix turned, I was like, oh, okay. He looked unhappy in that family portrait.
Right. Well, and there somebody brought up something about his background. I can't remember.
Did they? I guess I didn't remember.
At the dinner scene. It was either at the dinner scene or at some point he said something.
They can't buy when they try the cell phones and they can't get them. He's like, well, yeah, they must be using a jammer, because you can get one of those things for like $30 online. They're like Felix, you and your sketchy, weird, something.
The people you hang out with, right? So he brought up that he kind of had, kind of that dark.
Okay, fair enough.
Dark
He's the criminal
and brooding.
Of the family.
Oh, surprise! Oh, goodness. All right. Do we have any? Does anybody else want to try and convince me of why I'm totally wrong, or shall we go on and rank this thing?
I don't think anyone will ever be able to convince you that you're wrong.
This is going to be a very difficult ranking, because I can already guarantee you I'm never going to see this film again. So I'm very much
You're
looking forward.
You're on number 3 to 1.
I know, and I'm totally okay with that position. I'm very much looking forward to how you guys shake this one out. I'm excited about this.
I will say. Sorry. I was going to say. I will say I'm excited to see how this one does at the box office, because it has been surprisingly, I think, kind of a good year for horror films this year. I mean, I'm not saying they've been great films, but they've been money makers. Mama, Evil Dead, The Purge, The Conjuring. And I know I'm missing some other ones out there. It's been a really good year for horror movies that have ended up making quite a bit of money. So I'm curious to see how this one does at the box office.
Well, Andy, to that point, I mean, how much of the success do you attribute to a nice run of horror films? Like, are we in sort of a cultural upswing where people are excited about horror films right now, and might be blind to the fact that they're seeing actually a really terrible film?
It's always hard to say. Horror films they can definitely be kind of a sign of the times, and it can be one of those things. But then you have things like The Conjuring that I think is kind of above and beyond what you normally get in a horror film. James Wan, I think, usually does some pretty good stuff. Yeah. And
I'm excited about Insidious too, because I liked a lot of Insidious, the first one.
I did too, up until the end, but I am very excited to see the second one, and I'm excited. Just to completely change topics for a second, but I was excited to see that the latest trailer they did for Insidious 2 was actually demonstrating people's heart rates when they watched the movie. They had like a test audience where everybody wore little heart rate monitors on their fingers so they could actually track everybody's heart rates over the course of the film. I thought that was ingenious.
That's brilliant. That is
it really
brilliant.
was.
Instead of just that the black light, not black light,
Right.
infrared stuff.
Right, we're just watching people scream. This was actually tracking heart rates.
For Insidious 3, they're going to do that and heart rate, but then also show people going to sleep in their apartments that night
Right.
and see
They'll
how
fall
late
home.
how long it takes for them to sleep.
I hear they have moisture sensors in the seats so they can track everybody who just pees in the middle of the film.
And
I
odor
would be a
sensors to track
mess.
stress.
But I also have a lot of physical problems. So.
Let's rank this thing, can we?
All right.
If you want to see the ranking of all of our films, the top 100, the golden list, head over to flickchart.com/thenextreel.
All right.
You're going to have to go to like page 3 for this one. Please, 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 please.
We'll see. All right, you're next or Moon?
Moon.
Yeah, I would go Moon.
Moon.
All right, well, we know Pete doesn't even have to
Moon.
talk
I'm sorry.
about
I
this
don't
one.
mean to be that kid. Like, I'm the kid in the corner who won't play Monopoly anymore. Moon.
You're next or Clute?
Clute. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, that's yeah.
What's Clute? I'm sorry. I apologize. What's Clute? That sounds like a made-up movie. I feel like you guys are just making sounds and saying, "Hey, did you see Beep Boop? What's Clute?"
You haven't seen Clute.
I guess not. I'm sorry.
I got a blog post for you to read. I'll send you.
Is it like a big famous old movie?
Yeah.
Pretty famous.
Donald Sutherland and Jane Fonda. She won her Oscar for it.
Oh. I guess what do I do? Do I abstain?
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Just sit there and be a little boy.
Oh.
Oh, do not care for that, sir.
You're next or The Wolverine?
Ooh.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Because
Is it really a good one?
yes, it is. Because I will say, I will go back to my point of judging a film based on what the filmmakers are trying to accomplish, and because this one was fun, and even though it shifts tones, first half building suspense, tension, does that, check. Second one, 80s cheesy, horror film, check. Wolverine, it's going to be this cool. No, it's not. It's going to be a typical comic book film, which is fine, but they set it up for something, and then the filmmakers let me down, whereas this one, the filmmakers always set a tone and met what they set out to accomplish, so I would pick Your Next over The Wolverine.
So would I. Said perfectly.
Yeah, Wolverine.
I will pick Wolverine based just solely on the fact that the bullet train sequence and that shot of all of the arrows with the ropes going into his back moved me more than anything in Your Next. So I will say the Wolverine.
Down. What do we do now?
Well,
it's got
Chad liked it.
Oh,
Exactly.
Chad
That's
liked it. We should say, I have a quote. I'm just going to interject a quote here. Chad says, it's 1970s clothing with 1990 CD players and 1960 color tones filmed back in 2011. That's awesome. Made me confused the entire time. Animals killing people? I don't know. I barely know if we're on planet Earth. I loved that. And I liked that the entire family looked like a real life version of the old people on the old box cover of the game Clue. Then suddenly they're all being killed by kangaroos or whatever they were with arrows and axes. Awesome.
Oh, that's brilliant.
That's our tiebreaker.
I think Chad's going to be the tiebreaker on creativity alone.
Yeah.
He does have a problem. He does have a problem with the bad son yelling out his entire plan, not knowing what had happened to the quote Hunger Games girl.
Right.
It's this ripe stuff.
It was great. It was a funny read.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
What's next?
You're next or We're No Angels? I would do We're No Angels.
I think so too.
I know you do.
I should just stop talking. Is that what
have
you're
either?
telling me?
That's right. Have either of you guys seen We're No Angels?
No, we have to abstain.
Is that the nun?
No.
They pretend to be nuns?
No, that's the
that's
Sean
Nuns
Penn
on the
remake.
Run.
No.
Sorry,
That's the
generally
Sean.
I'm thinking of the film Nuns on the Run. When in doubt.
There you go.
What's Weirdo
Spectacles,
Angels?
testicles, wallet, and watch. There you go.
We're No Angels was that 1955? It was a
Humphrey Bogart.
Humphrey Bogart.
Is it the sequel to Clute?
Three
No,
criminals.
It's the
Right.
sequel to Clute.
Sequel to Clute. I have to
Spiritual
abstain. I
prequel.
apologize.
Okay.
Although I love that title for like a terrible sitcom. Okay, never
Bad baby. Okay, you're next or Bullet? I'll do Bullet.
Oh, you have to do Bullet. Yeah, Bullet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bullet.
The nice thing about Flickchart, when every time you're ranking, it gives you a new poster every time. And I've got to say, the posters for Your Next, it is a fantastic collection. It really
Absolutely.
is. They're all absolutely terrifying. Okay, Your Next or Bull Durham?
Oh,
Bull Durham.
criminy.
Bull Durham. Yeah.
There you go. Come on. Say it. Pete. Say it.
Wait, what is Pete's problem with Bull Durham?
You guys hate
Hates
me.
Kevin
He's-
Costner.
it's-
You hate Kevin Costner?
Yes. Well, I'm not a huge fan. Oh, you guys stink.
Nothing? Not even the postman? All right.
oh.
No, I'll give you Bull Durham.
All right.
Ooh.
You're next or Key Largo?
Key Largo.
Key Largo.
Key Largo, you got.
Key Largo.
All right, 92 out of 105.
Okay, that's fair.
I think
92 out of 105. Oh, okay. We ranked Your Next as 92.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that I'm still learning how this works every single time.
Every single time. Tom, now a regular, still wondering where his bedroom is.
I like that, though.
So the movies that are worse, according to you
Oh.
people:
Oh yeah, there's
The Wolverine, Oz the Great and Powerful, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, Pritzi's Honor, 42.
That should be re-ranked.
Yeah, it probably should.
42 is worse?
42 is apparently worse than that.
well
one.
we know how Tom feels about sports films, so yes.
The Hospital, Alien Resurrection, The Fifth Element, Outrage, Strange Days, Marty, Now You See Me, Scoop, and Rush.
What's Rush?
I feel good about most of those.
I do feel good about most of those.
Rush
Yeah.
is Rush the Jason Patrick drug movie?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, I thought that was supposed to be good. I haven't seen it. Okay, cool.
Well,
Go back
Man.
and listen to their review, and yeah.
That raced to the bottom in a hurry.
Oh, okay, cool.
Oh,
All right.
man.
it was very different in 1991 when we first saw
I
it.
see. It was between that and Clute for tonight, so. So that'll help.
Gentlemen, I regret to tell you have not swayed me one iota on this film, but I really did enjoy this conversation. Thank you so much for
Oh,
bringing your A games.
Well, and
Yes.
I knew we were never going to sway you, so it was just one of those. It was one of those conversations where it's like, should we try to just piss each other off, or
Should we do it
just
without Pete at all?
should we just have fun? Should we scare him and have him cry in the corner?
Yeah, right. Well, this was good fun. Do we have any other closing elements before any other closing news? Nothing? Do we want to talk about what we're doing? Do we even know what we're doing next time?
We actually do.
We do. Yeah.
We have
we?
decided in advance. Yeah, we decided we were going to do Prisoners.
Oh, good! Yay! I'm really excited to see that movie.
Ooh,
Sorry.
child abduction films.
I know.
Awesome.
Well, it's got to
Sure.
redeem Hugh Jackman. So
Yes.
Right. It's a
This is
how-to.
the new. I think it's is it Denis Villeneuve film? I don't know how. It's a very French name. Dennis Villeneuve. I don't know. I
This
don't
is-
speak French.
Yeah, this is. I too am looking forward to seeing this film. Looks.
It'll be a great one to take the kids to, and then
That's
you can
right.
say, "See what happens when you don't listen to me."
Yeah, it's a very nice Arrested Development moment there.
Did I ever tell you? Did I ever tell you the story of trust? Can I share a quick story? This is a good one to leave people with.
Oh.
Next door neighbors has two little kids, and guys, they were climbing up on their roof, and he's from Jersey, and he's kind of you'd think of him as kind of a made man, kind of a portly guy. Comes up and he says, "Hey, jump down off the roof. I'll catch you." "No, you're not going to catch me." "No, I'll catch you." "No, you're not going to catch me." This is his son, father to son. So the kid screws up his last bit of courage, and he jumps. And the dad steps out of the way, and the kid comes crashing onto the lawn. And the dad looks at him and says, "Don't ever trust nobody," and walks away.
That was scarier than anything in Your Next. I hate that story.
That's how I feel about all of you for making me go see this movie, and you hereby are not redeemed. So this has been fantastic. I love you all. Tom Metz, Steve Sarmento, Andy Nelson, as usual, and we will be back with Barton Fink, our regularly scheduled show on Thursday. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Andy, however, doesn't thank anybody.
No.
Never.
Oh, thanks.
No.
Sorry.